Okay, so today we're going to talk about gauge and really gauge swatches and how to make them. Obviously, whatever your pattern tells you in terms of what the gauge should be made in, you want to follow those instructions. But very often, your pattern will call for a stockinette stitch gauge, and you have to determine whether or not your stockinette stitch gauge is going to be knit flat, right, going back and forth, knit a row, purl a row, knit a row, purl a row, or if you're going to be in the round where you're always knitting. So this is an example of your stockinette flat gauge, right? This is very obviously my purl side. It's where my bumps are. And this is obviously my knit side, right? Where the knit stitches are the smooth stitches. And this works great for anything that I'm doing that is flat. If, however, I am knitting that project in the round, if you think about it, my knit side always faces me when I'm in the round, and the purl side never does. And so to do a stockinette stitch gauge in the round, I need to just knit and have no purls. And the reason this is important is sometimes our purls, or very often, frankly, our purls are slightly different sized than our knit stitches are. So I have here, I've just cast on for my gauge, and I've gone ahead and knit one row. And normally I'd finish that row and I would turn my work and I would purl back for a flat. If I were to knit this next row, I would be creating garter stitch, right, which has these bumps on both sides. So in reality, what I need to do is finish my knitting row, slide my stitches all the way to my other needle, and this of course has to be done on circulars or double pointed needles. I'm going to slide it all the way to the other needle, and then I'm going to knit it. But my yarn is all the way over here. So if I were to pull this really, really tight, I'd actually be making a ginormous I-cord. So what I'm going to do is create a long loop. This long loop essentially simulates my having gone all the way around and being back here and ready to knit again. So I'm going to do that big old long loop, and it's going to feel weird and it's going to look weird, and you're not going to be happy with me at all, and that's okay. And you're going to go ahead and knit all the way across your little gauge until you get to the end. And of course, I'm going to show this only in the style that I knit because there is no difference in terms of how it's functioning. Or I might do one row throwing, but I just want to quickly get there. Then again, you can see that's my next row of knitting is already produced. So I'm going to slide those stitches to the other end of my needle. I'm going to grab my little free needle and I'm going to make another long loop. And I'm going to once again, and the length of the loop does not matter. Do not stress about it. Don't try to get them the same size. The only thing that matters is that loop is longer than your number of stitches so that you're not pulling your sample in. And I'm going to go ahead and once again, just get to that other end of the needle fairly quickly. Your edge stitches are going to look funky on this. You might even lose the occasional edge stitch. Please do not start your swatch over for that. You're going to be counting your gauge within the middle of that swatch. And I'm all the way back to the end. And again, I'm going to drop that needle, slide my stitches all the way to the other needle, right? I'm all set up, and this time I'll start it off throwing, just so that you guys who do that can see that, because it's really no different. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to do my big loop, and then I'm going to create my other little loop on the needle, come through, and start my knitting process all the way down. Be sure not to super tighten like I just did, right? Make sure you're not tightening and that you have that loop right there. So I have my 3 loops for my 3 rows. Please remember, and when we teach this at the store, it's so funny because people are like, well, when I knit in the round, what am I going to do with all those loops? And, you know, aren't things going to get caught in that? And what's going to happen with those things? We do that loop only on our gauge swatch so that instead of having to cast on, you know, instead of only casting on like 10 or 15 or 20 stitches, if you did it all the way around, you would have to cast on to fill your entire needle. And that's all we're doing. Those loops are simulating that you have gone all the way around and you are ready to knit again. So I'm just going to get to the end of this row super fast. And you'll see that's what my little gauge swatch is looking like. I'm not knitting very pretty because I'm just trying to do this quickly for you. And I'm going to again slide it down, and I would go ahead and read my gauge from that. And that is a circular, a stockinette stitch gauge in circular knitting. So you would do this for hats, for cowls, for anything that tells you to cast on and then join in the round.